Hello and welcome to the NOTstalgia podcast.
A podcast where we discuss the retelling or continuation of pop culture favorites as seen through a queer and feminist lens.
My name is Eric Lefebvre.
And my name is Jessica Tercero.
And this week we are joined by one of my best friends, Tim Ward. Welcome to the program and the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Perfect. So we're going to just give you the mic for the next 3 hours and go for it.
I've got this. The only weird thing is I won't have anybody to interrupt, but I've got this.
Yeah, go. Just go up. Okay, well, this week we did a classic and a classic. We decided to do The Shop Around the Corner and its remake, You've Got Mail.
Which I didn't realize You've Got Mail was a remake of something. And then the further that we got into it, it was like, oh, it was originally a play in 1938. And then it was this movie. And then there was a musical. And then there was this. And I was like, oh my God, like this movie just like, to me, it didn't seem like classic remake material. So I wasn't expecting that from this. But what a treat.
It really didn't. Yeah, it doesn't feel like one of those movies that's like, I mean, just because, again, there's not a movie called You've Got Mail. It is, they've changed the title, but even then, I was also surprised when I found out it was a remake. Because I'd never heard of Shop Around the Corner until like this year.
Same.
Or if I'd heard of it, I didn't like, it never registered in my brain and I'd never seen it. So I was like, oh, well, whatever. But the fact that they're essentially the same
like
story.
In a bunch of like top 100 lists and stuff. And I'm like, wait, really? I was looking up the Wikipedia for this and I was like, okay, like, I mean, it's cute, but like, I don't know if it's like that profound. So I don't know if, I mean, maybe I'll change my mind famously like I do when we talk about it. But
I mean, because I will say, as soon as you were like, it's in a list of 100 best movies, I was like, oh yeah, I would believe that. Just based on this one viewing, I have a lot to say about it. Tim, what is your history with Shop Around the Corner as an idea, as a story, as an IP?
For me, my experience largely was when I was watching it as a kid with my sister. Like late at night, TCM, can't put it down, can't sleep anyway. I would just like watch it over and over probably. And then also as I got older, I just really fell in love with the Judy Garland one, which is called The Good Old Summertime, and it's a musical. And that one, I sort of like switched gears and just started like watching that one more. So I was really excited to be able to revisit this original one because I had sort of put it to the side for probably 15 years.
see, and then even the remake has a different name. So maybe this is why this is such a sleeper, timeless story, right? Like, wow, the plot thickens. I'm so excited.
Yeah, every version of this, because then the original play was called The Parfumery.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, it wasn't called Shop Around the Corner. It was like, I think it was just meant like store, perfume, or like whatever. I don't know the translation, but like The Parfumery is the name of the play.
I think this also similar to how it like changes the name and it changes maybe like the setting slightly and the characters slightly, but like it really is like a timeless kind of idea, right? Like the anonymity of, we'll get into all of it, but like I think that's really even more interesting because this is really a story you can project whatever story you want to tell onto this framework, right?
Yeah.
Similarly to you, I had not heard of Shop Around the Corner. I lived through the 90s and early 2000s, so You've Got Mail was very prominent, both the iconic You've Got Mail, but also like the movie. So that's all I knew about this, but I had no idea about anything else outside of like, this is a movie that exists. I have never seen it. The end.
I mean, similarly, I've seen You've Got Mail before. It is definitely one of those movies that I didn't see when it came out. I think I was a little too young. But then later and into like early adulthood, I watched it and I was like, oh, I get why this was like a hit. I get why it is fundamentally a romantic comedy. Like it is like one of the building blocks for the genre. Like this is what a romantic comedy looks like. And obviously Nora Ephron, like that's bread and butter. That's the vibe that like we know that's like where she works. That's her wheelhouse. Like upper middle class, white, sort of snarky characters as a romantic comedic base, all of which live in like Greenwich Village or like wherever in New York. Like that is where she shines. But either way, I didn't really have that history with this apart from seeing it once or twice and really enjoying it. And similarly, I'd never seen Chaperone on the Corner. I'd hardly even heard of it. So this was like a really fun watch. This was like a fun start. This was fun to get into.
Oh my gosh, are we ready? Should we just dive in?
I think we're ready. Let's do it.
Alfred Kralik is the top salesman and oldest employee at a leather goods shop in Budapest called Matischek and Company, who finds himself enamored with an anonymous woman he's been corresponding with via mail. One day, recently unemployed Clara Novak walks into the shop, determined to get a job. Despite Kralik's best efforts, Novak manages to charm the shop owner Hugo Matischek by selling one of the shop's more eccentric wares, and in turn is offered employment. Kralik and Novak's rivalry continue to grow over the coming weeks, as does Kralik's affection for his anonymous correspondent. Meanwhile, Matischek begins to suspect his wife of having an affair with Kralik, prompting their interactions to be strained. Bothered and unfazed by Matischek's odd behavior, Kralik finally decides to meet his mysterious recipient. However, on the night of his engagement, Matischek suddenly declares mandatory overtime for all the employees, which throws a wrench in both Kralik and Novak's plans for the evening, especially once Kralik finds out he's being fired.
Unable to face his date, he convinces his coworker to find out who she is for him and is shocked to find out it's Novak. He takes a seat next to her at the cafe, and the two argue for a while before Kralik leaves and starts to rethink his life. Back at the shop, Matischek finds out his wife was cheating with a different employee, not Kralik, and attempts to unalive himself. Just before he succeeds, the shop errand boy stops him and takes him to the hospital. Unable to leave the hospital, Matischek rehires Kralik into the manager position and gives the errand boy the open clerk position. Delighted with his new role, Kralik begins to be kind to Novak while continuing to send the anonymous letters. Then, when they're alone together after the Christmas Eve rush, Kralik reveals his true identity to Novak, who is truly delighted to learn he is the one she's been corresponding with all along.
Okay, right off the bat, I would like to say the sock garter moment is one of my favorite in all of cinematic history, and I love everything about that. I cannot express how much I love this, and they linger on that shot. Like, it's not just like a quick little cute
it's
wink.
like 45 seconds of film. He like lifts it up and then kind of sits there, and then it kind of goes down, and then he lifts it up again, and it's like, what? Wait, what's happening? They got the shot. And what's happening?
That's the climax instead of like a kiss or anything like in this, which I thought was really cute, especially for a romantic comedy, especially of the age, right? Instead of the kiss, it's like, well, do you wear sock garters? And she's like, oh my God, do I? Like, I don't have bow legs. Check me out. And I think it's also really cute because like generally, like when I think of garters, I think of like women in boudoir situations and stuff. So I'm like, oh, this is incredibly cute. And I love this so much because we're sexualizing him and not. So it just on all levels, I love this.
Yeah. I mean, granted, garters are very cute. It's also just like, it's a funny moment to be like, yeah, I'm not bow-legged. See, it's a cute way to kind of affirm both of their emotional yearnings a little bit, where he gets to be a little bit performative silly. She gets to make the little joke at his expense because they're both a little bit conniving, especially when they're like at each other's throats. They both have this edge to them. And so to see them like kind of have that edge together, but it's softened because they obviously know each other is who they are. It's just like, it's like the perfect way to close it out. It's cute. It's so cute.
Sorry, I didn't mean to start with the ending, but I had to.
I mean, and we were talking about earlier about how this was on a list of 100 best movies. And I will say, this movie is so charming. And it's so quick. Like, all of the dialogue, I was so impressed by. Off the bat, we're getting these characters. They're saying their names. I'm like, I know who these people are. The jokes are landing. The jokes are good, and it's not like bad. It's not like jokes of the time where it would be like non-white people or women or whoever. Like, there's no like real punching down here with a few very small exceptions. It's like genuine, fun these little zingers and bits, and like off the bat, I was so intrigued and enthralled by like these characters who work at this little shop and this like shitty boss who is also the actor who played the wizard in The Wizard of Oz.
Really?
Yeah, he played.
Cool.
This was, I think, he died maybe 7 or 8 years after this movie came out.
Ooh.
So it was obviously towards the end of his life. But yeah, he was the wizard in The Wizard of Oz, which it was great. It's cool to see him because, again, with a lot of these like older actors, because there is such a huge time difference, at least for me, I've never seen them in anything other than the thing that they're famous for.
Right.
So being able to see this actor be like, no, he was an actor and in so many different things, it was nice to see. And I was like, ooh, yeah, I'm into it.
Yeah, and a lot of this movie really hit, like you were talking about the dialogue, and it was very smart, and like you said, it wasn't really punching down, or at least not punching down on anybody that didn't deserve it, like Mrs. Marstachek and the pretty boy that's like boning her. Like,
Vada, what is his name?
Vadis.
Vadis. Okay. But yeah, so like when we're punching down at like this dopey dude and her, but it's like also very fun the way it's done, like where the owner of the shop is like, don't tell anybody, like errand boy Peppy, and he's like, oh, I won't tell anybody, and the wife calls and he just tells her off, and like in front of all of the employees he's like, hey, listen to this. Right? And I was like, this is so cute. And also like the commentary that it has on capitalism and on like CEOs and like bosses and things like that, I thought was so like just incredibly smart and perfect. And again, that really delighted me for especially like a film from the 40s, you know?
Yeah. I mean, with that character too, I made a note just being like, oh, the gossip of this gay, where like immediately like, oh, she looks 40, and he's like, oh, well, I think she looks good. They're like, no, I didn't say she looks bad. I'm telling you. And he's like, I'm just whatever. And it's like, yeah, the food was good. Why? It's like, oh, so was the goose liver no good? No, I said it was good. I didn't say it was bad. Fucking stop. Like, you gossiping asshole. Like, stop twisting this shit. You're such an asshole. Like, it was so funny and so sweet because they're all like, it's such an already built-in character element that like they're all so tired of like the gossiping and the twisting of the words, and I thought it was so fucking funny. I'm so into it right from the get-go.
I liked a lot of those like quick jokes of like on that car scene when they're getting out after or the next day following that dinner party, when the driver comes out and goes, oh, I bet you're wondering how I got my new clothes or where I got these new clothes. Don't they look nice? And the other guy just like, no, I don't wonder.
I don't want to know.
That's the end of it. I don't want to know.
That's my favorite joke, and that they do it pretty often. Like, want to hear a joke? No. Do you want to know how I got this? No. And like, what was it like? Oh, how much is that belt in the window? Oh, the one that says $295. $295. Oh, no.
That was so funny. Like, that was so good.
It's so cute, and like to me, it's like more nourishing humor. Because it is like situational, and it's like it feels like smarter, and then instead of just being like punch down shit, like it just felt good. It's like
it felt like a store that I work in, where I'm like, these are absolutely the people that I work around. This is absolutely the conversations that we have. This is absolutely how we respond to that one person 100%. That person is so annoying. Like, it was a really cool characterization, and you got everything like right off the bat, which was great.
Yeah. I will say I was so I did not expect the like death by suicide attempt.
Right.
That like threw me so quickly because I was like, oh, he's obviously sad, and he's just gonna get through it, whatever. And then he goes into his office, and then you hear like the gunshot go off after he runs in. And I was like, wait, what? Hold on. Like, it just, not that it felt out of place, because I mean in context it like, oh yeah, like he's literally having the worst day of his life. Like, I get this. Cool. But just for that character, because he did seem so chipper. And I guess that's like part of the conversation where like he's a little bit resolute. He's a little bit stalwart. He's a little bit like strong boss daddy, which cool. But watching him like break in this moment was definitely, it was good. There's nothing about it that I was like, this is bad and you shouldn't show this at all. Because it is like, it's a compelling component of the story. And like, also knowing that like he was saved from that fate, and suddenly the change of heart happens where it's like, I was so close to death, I don't feel that way anymore, and you know what, I should take a break.
That's the moment where he stops to take out his frustrations on his employees, which we absolutely see him do that, which again, very good characterization of just like a boss who also has so much fucking wealth. The point where he fires Krellick and he is like, oh, your whole month's salary, you're entitled to that. That's $200, right? And then his wife hits him up and is like, hey, I need $1,000 by tonight. And he's just like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like, the wealth that this man has, like, is obviously boundless, and of course he can like afford a raise for these people, and of course he, but like he doesn't have power at home, right? Like, so of course he tries to exercise what power that he feels like he has over his employees, right? So there's that power dynamic that is always unbalanced. And the way that he also was seeking validation from Krellick, right? With like in every interaction, he's like, hey, look at these boxes I found. Do you like these boxes? Do you like these boxes? I mean, like, but tell me honestly, though. And he tells him honestly, and he's like, he doesn't know how to handle that. And I think that's part of why he like is so drawn to Krellick, is because he's the one person in his life that tells him exactly what he's thinking and how he's feeling. And I really did feel for this character in a lot of ways, because I thought, because we saw all of these different sides to him, and it's like, yeah, absolutely, this is, he may be a good person, but he does have this like this wealth, and he is in this position of power, so of course he's going to take that out on people. When he has that change of heart, after he tries to unalive himself and he realizes that his wife was cheating, and this whole thing, he does start to realize his real family is his employees, which again, there's always going to be that that power structure. Like, it's never going to be equal, right? But like, he does start to try to actually invest in them, but he doesn't know how to do that other than buying them, right? Like, here's money, here's this, here, do you want dinner? Let's go to dinner, let's do this, So more than anything, I think I felt bad for him. I mean, he's rich, so I didn't feel that bad for him, but like, I just thought it was a really interesting way to portray a character like that.
Yeah, especially again, the richness is like a huge component of this, where he has everything and he's like so tight-fisted when it comes to like giving his money, like for his wife. Obviously for his wife it's like, oh, here's 1,000 whatever, but for his store it's like, oh, we can't sell that in this. And I get that that's like business mentality, whatever, but watching him crumble and watching sort of that life sort of fall around him, only to then discover the goodness of just like what he has.
Yeah.
I mean,
also,
it's great. It's gorgeous. It's like
he
lovely
apologized.
He apologized.
Which we rarely see people in that position of power do, and it felt like a genuine apology. He's like, hey, I'm sorry. This is what happened. This is 100% my fault. Here, I want you to have a promotion. I'm so sorry. Give yourself a raise. You have that right now. Take care of these people. I trust you. Like, I was a fool. Like, it felt like an honest apology. And I think that was really cool.
And the moment too, which I also like later, when he tries to come back into this capitalist mindset of like sell, the one moment he's like out of the hospital, he's outside, and to some passerbys is like, oh, wow, can you tell me how much that briefcase is? They're like, oh, 24 whatever. He's like, 24 whatever? That's a steal. I can't believe that. And they were like, you should know the prices of your own shit, dude. We know who you are, and leaves. And he's like, oh, damn it. But it's just like a fun, because he's trying to like fall back into the world that was like unhealthy for him, this bad world of like capitalism and price and manipulation. And the one time he tries to do that after this journey style revitalization, it's shot back in his face, and he's like, wait, actually, yeah, I'm not gonna keep trying this. And it's nice because as like a story beat, you're like, yeah, like, don't let him fall back into that space. And he's like, oh, what am I doing? No, whatever. And I don't know if that's like super duper intentional, apart from it just being a fun joke, but for this character it feels so real. And so like, again, I'm gonna use the word nourishing, but it felt very nourishing for me, because it's like, this feels so intentional. Like, they know what this character is. He knows what's going on. I love this, that he's not like, he's a good guy. And I like that we're seeing him even make these little mistakes after the fact. And it's like, oh, whatever. Like, he's still good. Ugh.
That's one of my favorite jokes in the whole thing. Just, it's the one that made me laugh out loud, because it's just such a silly line where those two women are able to be like, well, if you can't answer that, I don't know who can. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's just so silly. And it's like, it's such a great way of putting him back into his place. And I do want to say, like, well, two things. I love that scene where they're all going away for their Christmas dinner, and each character gets to sort of be their sincere self. Like, the other guy, I can't remember his name, the one who's been trying to dodge his dinner with his family, of course he's not going to have somebody over for Christmas. He just wants to be home alone with his wife. And like you see him kind of fumbling through trying to like make sense of the new world he's found himself in and flailing. But the other thing I want to say is he's got a temper. The way that people would run from him, like he's nice, he's a good person, he's trying, but you're not gonna find me hanging out with him. I'm sorry.
Also,
Oh
the
my
joke.
gosh, that was so funny. Like literally
They
every
did
time
it-
he asked for an opinion, and Petrovich, is that his name? He like immediately is like, "Ooh," and he like runs up the stairs, hides behind like displays.
They
It
do
was
it
so
like
silly.
10 times too.
Yes.
To the point where the last beat of that joke is you see his foot step on the top step on top of frame and he's like, "Can I get your," and then the foot just disappears again. Like, it's such a good bit. And like,
Yeah.
I thought after the third one I was like, okay, I get it, but by that last one with the step and then the out, I was like, genius. That's so fucking funny. That's so funny.
Even Clara is like in the glass case trying to organize everything. There's so much body comedy with it.
Yeah. And it's true that like he is ultimately, I like his journey. Again, like he does sort of realize the importance of kindness and empathy. And I mean, again, we see that at the end with who's the new page boy? What was his name?
Pit.
Rudy with the
new
young
one.
kid, the
Got it.
17-year-old. At the end when he doesn't really have anybody anymore. Everything that he's built is gone, and there's this like young optimistic kid who's like just excited and happy to be there, and he's like, fuck it, like, are you hungry? Oh, you don't have family here, like you're here by yourself? He's like, yeah. It's like, oh, I'm cooking some crazy fucking meal, are you hungry? Like, that sounds amazing. He's like, great, let's go. Like, whereas before, like, that would be unheard of. Like, getting a dinner with this man is impossible. Like, you'd never ask for that, and if he invited you, like, what a delight. And especially for
And,
somebody like you said, Tim, who's so hot-headed. Like, he is so temperamental, and he's such an like egregious stubborn man who is so quick to anger and is so like frustratingly a man. Like, in all senses of the word in this world, like everyone has to like literally tiptoe around him so he doesn't get mad, obviously with the exception of what's his name, because he's like a son to him. It's just great to watch that melt away from this character by the end.
Well,
You
and
know?
the performativeness of him in the beginning too, right? Like, you know, like you were saying, like everybody that likes him or, you know, that he thinks that he likes and he doesn't like really care about. He's like, oh, I don't need your approval. You know, you already tell me you like me and stuff. But Krellick, him being like, you know, like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. Because he doesn't have that approval, he goes out of his way to seek it. He goes out of his way to invite him to dinner to his house, to do all of these things that anybody would feel more than lucky or happy to do because, like, I mean, they probably eat way better than anybody there, right? So anybody would love to be in that position. And, like, here he's only showing that kindness to the one person that he thinks that doesn't like him, the one person that he thinks that he does have to impress in order to get his approval, right?
I do want to pivot and talk a little bit more about Clara and Krellick and their like dynamic, their relationship. I think just as it pertains to like its reflection to You've Got Mail, and I mean I want to talk about that later, like when we get to it. But I love this very clear, like in person, she is so well written to the point where like she sets boundaries so well with him.
Yeah.
Where like something's happening and she's like, you know what? I actually don't want to argue, so we should stop talking. Like, we're not communicating well. You know that. I know that. We should stop. And then the moments that they do go that far, it's like, oh God, you're so whatever. And it's just, she's such a charming character that seeing her own that autonomy in this space, it's so just like, especially for the time, like she's not some like hopeless girl who minces her words. She's like, nope. Like,
this is post
this is
Hays
not good.
Code, right? Where like,
Yeah.
hey, like before the Hays Code, we had like incredible women like this in cinema all the time. But now we have 40s. This is post Hays Code. This is during Hays Code, actually, sorry. So like to have such a strong character, I think is really cool. But I do think that the line that she says later where she talks about oh, I had a crush on you, like at the very end, right? She says, the reason I treated you bad is because I read a book and I thought, I put myself there and I was like, well, she's mean to everybody and she gets the guy, so maybe I should do that. So I was mean to you because of that. So like, I feel like that line is an afterthought and not really meant to be anything or there because,
Yes.
again, of where the time is. And they had to stick that line in there to make the critics happy. So that way this movie would actually like be able to be released.
'Cause it
But that,
does-
to me, because
yeah.
like she never really changes. Like you were saying, she's so strong. She's so autonomous. The way that she treats him doesn't really change. It maybe starts to change once he's actually being nice to her and starts to see her as a person, which I think is another really great conversation in this one and in the next one, where we're assholes to each other, but like really when you actually get to know somebody and understand them on a fundamental level, like there is connection. And just be kind, because you never know what somebody else is going through, because like we're all people, we can all relate. Like, I don't know, I love that. Also, I just watched Everything Everywhere All at Once, and that ties into that, so we stand that movie here on this podcast too. But like, yeah, so she never really deviates from that characterization. So like when she said that, I was like, this was a forced line because she never changes who she is.
Yeah, it does feel like it delegitimizes her character.
Yeah. I like what you were saying about Mr. Matichek seeking validation from Kralik. I like that parallel that you brought up because I feel like Clara preys on his insecurities so well.
You're so
like
right.
She can cut to the bone, and he is so wounded about ideas about like when she tells him like something like, you're just a clerk, that like totally wilts him.
Yeah.
And he just falls to the ground. But I when you said that, I was like, oh, there's a parallel there, because that power dynamic is very similar.
You're so right. I didn't even realize that, but you're 100% right. The one person that he needs the approval from is the one person that doesn't like him. Oh, this is such a man thing. This is a man thing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
100%. Also, speaking of man things, the big question that I wanted to ask everyone here, how do we feel about the plot in general, right? Like, I think I had a bigger, like, big red flag moment in the next one, but the moment he realizes that she is his pen pal and he continues to hide the fact in order to, like, coax and coerce and, like, kind of, like, not in anything, like, devastating, but, like, manipulative in these in these moments. And I mean, at the end of the day, that being the crux of like the sort of like, oh, romance, like accident, whatever, however charming it may feel on the surface without really like diving into like what's actually happening, that whole bit is like really bad, right? Like, and as an idea, it's really bad.
So that is why this movie for me is not on the top 100 lists or anything. This movie is charming and it does have really good things. I do want to talk about Clara a little bit more. I do want to talk about, you know, a couple of other things. But overall, when the foundation is predatory, because, like, I mean, for those of you that don't know or have not seen it, Kralik is a pen pal with Novak, but they don't know that they're pen pals because they're anonymous, I can say that word, anonymous pen pals. And they talk about life and culture and all of these things, right? And like things that you wouldn't be able to say to like one of your friends because you're too close. I mean, like sometimes, you know, we have weird, strange relationships like that, I guess, but like the anonymity of it like allows them to maybe be more their true selves, which is also like weird. And I'm excited to talk about that, especially with the next one, and especially like, you know, tying that into like social media and everything. But yeah, it is so predatory because he finds out that it's her, and then he, in both movies they do this, where he makes the friend or whoever's there check who she is, asks what she looks like, when he's like, oh, it doesn't matter, but what does she look like? Is she fat? Is she this? Is she that? Right? Because obviously if she's fat, if she's this, like, then I'm not even going to entertain this, even though I said that I'm going to. But oh, great, she's pretty, excellent. Oh wait, it's somebody I know. Well, I don't know about that. But the fact that he doesn't fess up, and he just perpetuates the lie, and while having like insider information about her, and uses that to her and his advantage, to where like now he's getting a wallet for Christmas. Like it felt really gross and really icky and really manipulative, and I was honestly furious that both women still went for him and went for that, especially in the second one. Like, you're in my bedroom? What the fuck are you doing in my bedroom? Get the fuck out of here. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want you here. I don't want you anywhere. I'm sorry that you lost your job, but and like it literally takes the fact that this dude now sees her as a potential mate in order for him to be nice to her and give her a day off and to start treating her like a fucking human being, because if none of that existed, he as the new manager would have fired her. So like I have a really big problem.
Yeah,
with it.
it's a part of the story in general, no matter what iteration it is, that despite what is supposed to be like deemed just like circumstantial comedy, is still really fucking gross.
But
like,
Eric, this is what we as women are told is supposed to be charming and fun. And this is the
like
kind of story that we're supposed to want and how we want people to act and perceive us. Like, this is one of those things where I'm like, this is a problem.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. Ultimately, the moment that he finds out it's her and continues to keep his anonymity and use the anonymity to his advantage to then manipulate her actions, like, I don't mean to use this word in like this way, but that's psychotic. That's like absolutely wild. That's like so emotionally abusive. Like, disclose the information, you know it's her, either distance yourself and disconnect, or reveal the information that like, hey, this thing that we knew mutually was anonymous. I now know who you are, and you are this person who I know in real life.
You know
we
what,
should
Eric?
confront this or figure it out.
What you call emotionally abusive, somebody else calls romance. So
Yeah. Rough stuff.
Going back to your comment about him being insecure and describing, what if she's a cow? What if she's old? What if she's fat? Like, just an aside, fuck that waiter. But
Literally.
he then, once he knows who she is and he's manipulating her, the climax of that manipulation is him projecting those same insecurities onto her. Oh, I saw him, and what was the name? Like Puppy Whistle or something like that. Like, oh, he's bald. You know, if you don't mind not having a full head of hair, that's fine. Or, oh, can you support him on your salary? Like, all he's doing is putting that on her. And
yes.
And I definitely hope that we have a moment to talk about the way that toxic male behavior is perpetuated in this film, because Pepe's not innocent.
Oh, Pepe is a little shit. Like,
He's-
because the second that he gets an ounce of power, like, he's just shitting all over the errand boy. And I'm like, this is not cute. And a lot of his behavior is really shitty and really bad.
It's also learned behavior.
It's learned
It's
behavior,
all learned
and
behavior.
it's played.
Yes.
It's played for laughs, so it's supposed to be expected, right? Like that.
Yeah.
Oh well, you have to earn your keep. You have to do all this. Again, another bad learned behavior that we also learned from movies. Hello. Yeah, you're so right. You're absolutely right.
And again, why I kind of go back to what's his name as like, I really like his arc, because he's arguably the only one who learns and grows genuinely, it seems, in this movie. Like, he is that monster capitalist with power in this rich man, and he then gets knocked down and realizes that like, wait, no, none of that matters. People matter, and the way you treat people matters, and the way you exist around other people matters, whilst everyone else vies for that powerful spot, whether it's Kralik, who now knows he has the power over this woman that he's falling in love with and can use that power to coax her into a relationship, whether it's Pepe, who then he's now up one level and he has somebody to shit on and somebody to like whatever. He's seeing where he lies on the rungs of within the rungs of power, and now he's using that platform to his advantage. All of these men like level up in the patriarchal dominance circus that's happening here, and the only one who doesn't is Marischek, who just decides to like be out of the game. Like I feel like he like resigns himself from the game to some degree. Again, it's not like a complete change, but there is the level of like, I don't want that anymore. Like,
well, and how weird is it that we got like the most character development for like one of the side characters who like he was in half of the movie, right? And like he had more autonomy than everybody because like even though Clara is like really cool and like, you know, she like right off the bat is like, you're not going to tell me, I'm going to tell you, this is how it's going to go. Her autonomy is fucking taken away in the middle of it because Kralik has this unfair predatory advantage over here, both as her boss and as like, because he has this like intimate knowledge of her that he's also not sharing, and he's playing both sides, and it's really a big fucking problem. So yeah. Like all of my notes are mostly for Marischek. And I love that character. I love all of that. But it felt very much like, here is the woman in this story. Look at, she's strong, she's brave, she's all of these things. But even though you're showing us a strong, brave woman, you're still showing us more of the harm that men are causing and more of the predatory ways that they are acting, you know, and existing in the world. So even this woman that feels like she has the most autonomy and feels like she's getting somewhere and she finally found an honest man, she, you know, through anonymity and all of this, like, great, he's not going to want me for my looks or for my money or for my family or for none of this, right? It's just incredibly sad because even in her power, she has no power.
Yeah. No, you go, Tim. You say it. What were you going to say?
Oh, I just want to say sometimes when I go to the subtext, I go to the text, and there were a lot of like literary books. One was super confusing. Maybe you guys will have some insight, but like she's sitting in the cafe with Tolstoy and a flower, a carnation, I think. And then the waiter comes along and is like, last month there was a gardenia. And then, you know, and then he implies that another guy walked in and there was a gardenia on the floor and she wasn't pretty
so
enough.
Fucked up.
And also, gardenias are such a delicate flower. This is what drove me nuts. Of all the things, this is what drove me nuts. Gardenias need water. They're delicate. They're not going to last outside of water for like half an hour. And so the idea that people would be sitting in a coffee shop or a cafe with that, just, I don't know why that drove me nuts. But
you're like, that flower would not be on the fucking floor. It would be dust, you moron.
Gone.
How dare you?
That is an ephemeral, delicate, pretty thing. It's fragrant. Anyway, but the other books that they brought up, I'm back. I'm so sorry.
That's so funny.
No, this is my favorite quote of the pod so far.
Like, they also bring up Madame Bovary. When he's like kind of jilted, he's like, what about Madame Bovary? And then misquotes Flaubert. I can't remember who the right author or the wrong author was, but it's like kind of like, you're going to be lonely and dissatisfied in your relationships. And he knows why, because he knows that he's the one that she loves. And he's like, well, I'm out. I'm going to screw you up. And then the other one is like Crime and Punishment. I don't get that reference.
Yes. Okay. I was like, why that book? Why are we talking about that? Okay. What is that even about? I mean, probably Crime and Punishment.
So,
but
I know that the main character, Raskolnikov, is like this guy who, I was really trying to figure out the answer here. He basically justifies he by greatness, like, you know, the idea of the good of an outcome can outweigh the evil that is done is his whole thing. So great people can do bad things. So, and then he decides, of course, he's great, and so he can murder somebody.
How fun that that's what he references, because he literally has been awful to her, but oh my god, I'm such a good guy though. I'm such a good guy. Like, you're gonna see that I'm a good guy.
He has a history of being a good guy, so he can do this one bad manipulative thing in order for her to see his greatness and his goodness. Is that, I'm assuming that's it.
And be bad beforehand, right? Because he treated her like shit. You know, he's like, I mean, they were both like, I think you're awful. I think you're the worst person. Like, they dig into each other. They had so much chemistry. They dig into each other so well. So yeah, I think it was both Eric. I think it's like the meanness that he exuded before, and also, I'm gonna do this one bad thing, but it's gonna be fine and it's gonna be great in the end. So it's fine, because it's like absolving him of that.
I do also want to bring up Vadas a little bit. Just in terms, and I want to get your guys' read on this. Is he supposed to be unassuming because he's a little bit femme? Is that like the purported caricature or the character
Which
idea?
character was that?
He was the one who was having the affair with Matichik's wife.
The one who wanted diamonds, and he just wants to be kept fan.
Like,
yeah,
there is sort of a femme quality to this man in a way that just feels like a little bit like, and I mean these words with all of the queer context that they bring. He's a little flouncy. He's a little limp wristed. Like there's a little, he's a little gay, and like that's the deal. I mean, that's at least my read on it. So then later when it's like, oh, fuck, it was Vadis, they're like, what? He's a fag. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it can't be him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like that's like the jest, or that's like, for me, that felt like the implied, like, that was the reveal, was like, wait, he was like a little feminine. He's having sex with women? But I wanted to get your guys' read on it.
So I felt, I mean, for me, I'm like, of course, this person is queer, right? Of course.
That's what it felt like.
Again, knowing the time that this came out, I was like, okay, did they throw in that he's fucking the wife so that way it's like, hey, look, not gay. But also, even if he is queer, by the Hays Code, you cannot get ahead, you cannot benefit, you have to be punished, right?
Yeah.
So that would also be in line with that too.
And I wouldn't assume that this movie or this time would be progressive enough to include a bi character or a pan character by any means. This movie is dealing in clear, explicit binaries, so I wouldn't assume that at all, which is why it felt more like oh, he's gay, but he's not. And I think you're 100% right, probably, that like it is a Hays Code situation where like, let's convict the femme character a little bit. Like, let's make sure the character who felt gay is punished for wrongdoing, no matter how we have to spin it.
My read is... Oh, sorry.
No, you go. I was saying nothing but hearing my own voice. So
my read is that he he loves money, and I feel like that's his driving force. He's gonna sleep with her to get it. But I also think that maybe I saw him at Buena Vista Park last Saturday night.
Literally. Like, he was like, you've seen him. Yeah. So that's the vibe for sure. And it did feel a little like, oh, for as whatever as this movie is, I was definitely like, oh, okay. Like, it feels a little diminishing or dismissive. Which I wouldn't necessarily expect them to be incredibly queer forward, especially for the way they treat women, especially for like this movie. But I just wanted to make sure I wasn't necessarily reading too far into something that wasn't there.
I do want to say, though, for somebody who loves money as much as he does, and for somebody that is coded queer, because I think maybe he is, the bills in his wallet were so crinkled. They were so out of order. When he goes to tip the taxi cab driver, it's like, okay, clearly you're not like the one paying your bills, because you haven't opened that wallet in a minute.
I mean, to be fair, I would also like a daddy. So whoever's feeding that wallet, props. And I mean, apparently it was a mommy and not a daddy. So congrats to this man. Kathleen Kelly owns a children's bookstore in New York called Shop Around the Corner. Joe Fox owns a conglomerate book superstore trying to break into the same part of New York. Each of them are totally enamored with an anonymous person they've been corresponding with via email who just so happens to be each other. One day, Joe walks into Kelly's shop while babysitting his brother and aunt and finds himself instantly enamored with Kelly. His hopes are dashed as it sets in that she is the small business owner he's going to put out of business, and quickly tries to hide his identity. However, his cover is blown later at a fancy book party where the two run into each other with their significant others. Over the next few weeks, Fox and Kelly's rivalry continues to grow, as does their affection for their anonymous correspondent. Distraught at the very real possibility she'll need to close her business, Kelly asks her mysterious pen pal to meet up to help her come up with a game plan. Fox is stoked.
However, on the night of their engagement, Fox convinces his coworker to find out her identity for him and is shocked to find out it's Kelly. He takes a seat next to her at the cafe, and the two argue for a while before Fox leaves and starts to rethink his life and vice versa. They both break it off with their longtime partners, and Kelly sadly closes her shop. Fox begins to be kind to Kelly, and the two become friends, all the while still continuing to send anonymous emails. The anonymous pen pals decide to meet. Fox confesses his love for Kelly as Fox, then reveals his true identity as NY152, and professes his love for her again. Kelly is truly delighted to learn he is the one she's been corresponding with all along.
Okay, first and foremost, this cast: Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan, Greg Kinnear, Parker Posey, Gene Stapleton, Steve Zahn, and Heather. All you need is a light jacket Burns. Are you serious?
Thank you. I was like, Miss Rhode Island is this?
Miss Rhode Island. Okay, stacked. And fucking what's his name from the Mindy Project and several other things is the guy selling the kids books. He has like a bit part. He has like one line when he's like 17 in this film, which is also just like, damn, there's so many people. Obviously Dave Chappelle's in it. That was when he was on the rise. Fuck Dave Chappelle. But I had no idea Dave Chappelle was a co-star of this. Like, or that he was like, he's Tom Hanks's like friend. Like, I was so shocked. Same with Steve Zahn. Like, obviously it's a young Steve Zahn, but like, boy, oh boy, is that man cute. And same with Greg Kinnear. It's like silly how handsome these guys are. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Can I start by saying this movie literally opens up and tells you exactly what's going to happen in this movie. So Joe Fox is talking to Dave Chappelle. I did not get his name because I did not care. And he was also barely in the movie. Where Fox says people will hate us, but we'll get them in the end, right? Referring to his bookstore coming into New York and being a superstore, and the community will maybe not love us at first, but they're going to like us and it's going to be fine and we're going to be here. And that's exactly what happens between him and Kelly, where she hates him at first, but he got her in the end. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, remember this.
I liked that. I also, just to mirror that, if it's okay, there's this huge focus on corporations as the primary villain at this time. This being like, maybe before 9/11, where all of a sudden it was like terrorism in countries. This is when everybody's freaking out about Starbucks being on the rise, and Barnes & Noble is actually a huge villain. And so the idea of like, the Soviet Union collapsed, then there's like everybody's all happy, and with this like new wave of globalization, and then all of a sudden you think, oh well, maybe Walmart's not doing such a great thing. And so that's when like the narrative in movies really started shifting towards like, hey, this is the big bad. And I thought it was really interesting that in the end we actually did love them.
I think that was interesting and a little bit weird, because there was this moment where Kelly closes her shop and she like goes to this, Fox and Sons store, right? And it starts to feel like closure, where she closes the thing. She's like, I'm going to have to close. Everybody's telling her, hey, it's going to be fine. This is, it's actually really brave to admit when you need to close or when you need to make a change. And now you get to like live for yourself. And to me, like there was this moment where I was like, oh, okay, is this a good thing? Because it felt like now she doesn't have to live out her mom's dream. Now she doesn't have to like, have a daughter to pass this bookstore on, where she's like finally going to start reaching out for herself, and she's like grappling and having this conversation with herself. So she goes into Fox and Sons presumably for the first time, right? And there's a moment where I was like, okay, is she like thinking this is cool and this is good? Because like she's just kind of like, oh yeah, whatever. And she like cries, but like it was weird, because then it's like, oh no, this is still bad. This is still the enemy. This is still that. And like, I feel like that's a cool idea to be like, she doesn't have to, like, she can go be her own person and do what she wants now. I love that. And if she's like, is this bookstore good? If she's questioning that, that's great. But I would have liked to see a little bit more development around both of those ideas, because in the last one, we got a lot of character development for somebody. And in this one, we didn't really get a lot of character development for anybody, I feel. And I would have liked to see, especially Kelly, where we're centering her right off the bat in this movie. And she is very much like such a participant in this movie, whereas I don't feel Novak was in the last one. I would have liked to see more development of those kinds of ideas and of the complexities around what she's feeling. And I also would have really liked her to not let Fox in the door and not let him like come anywhere near her, because he literally like forced her to close, and all of these people don't have jobs anymore. And like, there was a moment where we're talking about the harm that he's causing and that he's causing to the neighborhood, but like, ultimately we don't talk, like that doesn't pay off and we don't go anywhere with that.
This is where I feel like Nora Ephron really just like her signature, where there is like this like really brutal subtext of like, oh, maybe the lower class is bad and maybe it is good to be a millionaire. Maybe the smartest people are the rich people. Have we thought of that? Like, I feel like that's like a lot of where she's coming from, just, and it's never text. It's never like this overt whatever, but because she's like writing and directing from like lived experiences of like upper middle class, lower upper class experiences, especially in metropolitan city, like in like big cities, i.e. New York, there is that level of like, I felt it so much, and especially with this viewing of like, yeah, maybe like being a millionaire conglomerate son of a corporate billionaire is like a really romantic thing, possibly. Maybe it's like a good thing, and maybe that's just life. And you're just like, wait, well, like, I know that that's not like the intended, but I feel like it's like imbued in this. Like, it's like,
I want to argue that it is not only intentional, but that Nora Ephron fought for it. This is my thing. This is okay.
Spill it.
I'm gonna go back to the subtext, which is the text chain. When Meg Ryan goes into the coffee shop and she sits down, she's got Pride and Prejudice. Now, I'm thinking this movie did not age well in 60 years when it comes to gender roles and gender dynamics and power things. And she brought in a lot of Jane Austen's tricks, which are still celebrated, even though it's a book that's like 150 years older than the first movie that we were talking about, because a lot of those things with Mr. Darcy being like really wealthy and fixing the problems and making that storybook happy ending happen through secrecy and through a little bit of manipulation, it was done in a way that we love. We thirst for it. We want that.
This is romance.
We want the power of wealth.
Yes.
And we want it to benefit us without really, feeling icky about it.
Because even though her shit closed and she is now autonomous, able to find this life, that life is with the man with the power and the man with the millions of dollars and the many boats. It's with the man with the boats. Like, she is going to inherit this wealth. Like, so maybe it is a good thing. Maybe it is positive, because maybe you will end up rich regardless and you will have a good life.
Yeah. 100%.
Iconic. It's so funny and so like base level. I do really love this movie. Overall, obviously we're going to get into more of this stuff, but it is like reeking of privilege and like whiteness. It's like the whitest privileged, like, ugh. Whatever.
So I want to piggyback off of the story that Tim was talking about, because as a woman, you hear a lot about Jane Austen and you hear a lot about Pride and Prejudice and you hear a lot about these stories that are so inherent to being a woman, right? And I want to say that I have never read Jane Austen. I have never read any of her works. And I don't know if I boycotted them, subconsciously boycotted or avoided them. I don't even think I've seen Pride and Prejudice or any of the film versions of her novels. So I don't know if like I just subconsciously am like, people say that I'm a woman and I have to watch this, so fuck that. Because I'm, again, worried about these kind of like problematic tropes, right? And you were talking about like these power dynamics and these like, Mr. Darcy, people talk about that. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. But from what I'm hearing, it doesn't sound good. And it sounds super regressive. And I just want us to get to a point where we're not referencing this 150-year-old media because it's problematic or because, like this is the apex of romance. This is the apex of, what you should want as a woman, blah, 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 blah. I want to I want to move past that. And if somebody is going to retell these stories, this is why I get excited, especially like having now done over 70 episodes of this podcast, where I'm like, people can retell these stories because there is good stuff there, but let's retell it for our time. Let's reclaim this.
In You've Got Mail, is it all right if I'm going back to You've Got Mail?
Yes.
No, we're done talking about You've Got Mail, Tim.
Oh, good, cool.
Jane Austen
Jane
only
Austen,
at this point.
Oh my God.
Pride and Prejudice, actually, Elizabeth Bennet is the main protagonist, and she has 4 sisters. One of them she gets along with really well. One of them is the nerdy one that's never going to get married. She's like the stereotypical aunt. And then she has 2 younger sisters who are a little bit like loose, and they're chasing sailors as opposed to finding a respectable man. Please know that I'm saying this in a tongue-in-cheek way.
Yes.
But the whole
honestly,
point
me.
of this allows Elizabeth to kind of like be in the middle, where she can act with some agency with her intentions and with her, I guess, so that she can act on her own in a way that allows us to look at other characters as being more polarizing than she is. Like, oh, well, she may have done this, but look at that other sister. She like just ran off and chased Mr. Wickham. I hope that wasn't a spoiler to anybody. But to bring it back to You've Got Mail, one thing that Nora did was that, because we're on first name basis now, Nora Ephron, she took those 2 characters that don't like each other and put them both in relationships. And we think of them as going, oh yeah, of course they're together. They're so similar. They're so similar because one of them is a farther caricature of who they are, and a reason why they don't work is because they're too extreme in one direction. And it allows Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks to be shitty towards one another in a way that's more forgivable, because Parker Posey is just really intolerable. And, you know, that guy talks about being a Luddite, but he has an addiction to electric typewriters. So you see the falsehoods that they both live in, which allows us to soften the 2 protagonists. And I think that's a totally Jane Austen move.
That's super interesting. Okay.
I love that, because
you
that was
probably have convinced me to read Jane Austen. You're such an influencer. I love this. But
well,
no, that's really smart.
Yeah.
That's actually absolutely correct.
That was also a mechanic in this movie that I thought worked really well. Like, I was so impressed with the Parker Posey, Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan, Greg Kinnear, like the dichotomy where it's like, and to be fully fair, like the breakup scene between Meg Ryan and Greg Kinnear, I'm obsessed.
That. I was obsessed.
Where he's just like, whatever. She's like, wait, are you not in love with me? And he's like, no. She's like, that is so good, because me neither. He's like, are you serious? She's like, yes. It's like, oh.
Yes.
Okay.
And then they talk about
then
like,
great.
Is there somebody else? What are you doing? And like, I love, because a lot of the time when we see like a breakup, it's always like bad, or it's always like, you know, there's always one person that's like a villain, or like that's not in the joke. But in this one, like, it was really refreshing for everybody to be like, just like, oh yeah, no, not me either. Oh, okay, cool. So like, are you seeing anybody? Oh my gosh, this is so cool. And then like suddenly it's friends. They're fine. You can have good breakups. Like, I was obsessed.
Yeah, it's really refreshing and cool and kind, and it's just it's one of the moments that really works for me in this. And again, also, I do think Parker Posey's performance is so good, because she's very charming and like cool, but then she's also like incredibly ridiculously mean and like really gross at times, and you're like, oh, she's wild. And I mean, Parker Posey's so good at being wild. Like, she is so good at it.
And also,
so
she knows exactly what is happening and what she's doing. Where she's not willing to like have these conversations with herself or pass judgment on herself. She's passing all of the judgment on Tom Hanks, where she's like, oh, you just ruined that woman's life. Like, you just put her out of business. How do you feel? Well, I'm going to make her a child's editor. What are you going to do? You just like destroyed her. which
I love it.
I like how she's so relentlessly honest, no matter if that's a bad thing with her. Like, when she's feeling mad and angry, she's going to let loose on everybody, preferably poor people, no matter what. When she's like, I really liked your thing. Here's what I liked about it, and I want to tell you exactly what it's about and why I love it and why I like you and why I think you're great. And then like, oh yeah, you ruined her life. You know that, right? You know that. You and I both know you ruined her life. Great. Cool. So you're fine with it? Yeah, me too. I don't really mind. Like, there's a level of just like
Mhm.
constant presentness that she carries with her where everything is so matter of fact, even to the detriment of like goodness or kindness. Like, because she's not necessarily a kind person, but she is a very pragmatic person. And I think that that's like, especially with Parker Posey, she's just like, she's so good at that role. Ugh.
In my opinion, it's the perfect thing because she can be the mouthpiece for the vile things that are happening in that environment. And I think that Nora Ephron then is free to take Tom Hanks and have most of his scenes with family. You get to see the
Yes.
soft parts of him, and he gets to only be the soft parts. And you never question why they're in a relationship. He does terrible things as a corporate person. She says the bad things. And, you know, he's the one that's like, I'll take care of the kids. I'll save you when you're in a cash only aisle. Like it gives him a lot of freedom as a character.
And we don't
Yes,
really see, like, you know, other than like a couple of scenes in the boardroom in the beginning, and maybe like one, like when his dad is like, oh no, sorry, they had boats parked next to each other. Bachelors. But
Yeah.
like at the
Ooh.
very beginning, it's like he's a CEO, he's an important person, he has an actual hand in what's happening. We don't see him in that role. Other than that, like, then he's just like, oh, I'm just Joe taking the kids out. Oh, well, I'm just Joe at my house with my dog. Like, it is really easy for us to like pull that back, like, oh, this is what he is, but like he doesn't actually do that. He's not actually that person. And I love and hate that.
Same.
Because I think it's smart.
Yeah, it is. I agree. I love and I hate it because I love it because it works really well in making this otherwise unlikable man likable. Tim, I think you hit it directly on the head. Like, she is the mouthpiece for all that is vile. He gets to be the sweet, earnest, empathy forward family man who is caring and considerate, when in fact he's literally in a role that's there to destroy people, to add, like, he is literally just there to destroy everything that Shop Around the Corner stands for.
The thing for me that was like, oh, maybe he is a good person or does have that goodness within him, was the apology. Because I think his apology that he wrote as 157 New York or whatever, right, was incredible. Because he started to write like, well, here's all of my excuses, and then he's like, oh, well, you shouldn't have oh wait, hold on. And he brought it all back and he said, I'm sorry that I put you in a situation where you were caused more pain. Don't worry about what was said. You were expecting to see someone you trusted and met the enemy instead. So in that apology, he literally took all of the onerous of that, and he said the exact right thing. And I never expected a film from the 90s to have such a thoughtful apology, but that is absolutely how you apologize.
Like, for real, this movie's so charming. And like, I mean, let's just talk about it then. The fact of the matter is, of him still being a manipulative person is still very there. It's the hugest part of the movie that makes it what it is. It's still just as, if not worse than the first one in this way, where like, not only does he see her and then start manipulating her, but after he ruins her life, he then befriends her. And on the day that she's supposed to go meet the man that she's in love with, he tries to convince her not to go by then professing his love to her, or like the possibility of love to her, to then even further confuse her. And I know that it's supposed to be like, because like very soon she's going to realize it's been him the whole time, which yay. But in that moment, it's like, King, you're bad. You need to stop. Like, let her fucking go. Like, I don't care that well, I do care. Like, do not befriend this person for the sake of hopefully getting close to them and
Don't
like
do
entangle
it.
romantically. And then on the day that she's invested vulnerable space with you, and your response to that is, what if we hadn't met that day? What if we fell in love instead? King, step back. Like, go home. Like, don't like, ugh,
Yeah.
it's so bad. And I will say, fully 100%, despite all of it, at the end, when she says, I wanted it to be you so badly. Bleh. Okay, so you say blah, I wept. I still think, despite it all, and I know it's bad and whatever, but that line reading and Meg Ryan reading it, like the
Yes.
way it's done in the movie, despite its context, that scene just by itself, devoid of everything, the way she says, I wanted to be you so badly.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, you wanted it to be her so bad. Like, it's just so like, it's so like emotionally validating where she's like, I knew it, but I didn't know, but I wanted it to be you. And I'm so happy it is. And you're just like, ugh.
I love that for you.
It's the yumminess of a silly romantic film. Like, that's what it is. And again, I mean, granted, the first time I saw this, I didn't really like analyze it from being like a messy, manipulative thing. And that happened. I'm just like, perfect. That is the best line reading of that line. That is the best line for that scene. Meg Ryan, Queen of the World. This is amazing. And even this time, with all of it in mind, when that scene happened, I was still like, yes, I'm so happy it was him. Like, it's so stupid. But I still want to shout out that line because that line, I still think is so good. I still stand by it, despite Tom Hanks being bad. Let's talk about the like. It's worse than the first one.
It is
like
100% worse than the first one, and it doubles down. Like, I mean, sure, he apologized that he wasn't there in the best way possible, but did he ever apologize for ruining her life? Because he knew I think she messaged him that line that I said about losing her mom all over again and stuff like that, right? Like, he knows how fundamentally hurt that she was by him. Did he ever apologize for that? We don't see it, but we also, because he's so far removed from that CEO title by this point in the movie, because again, they presented the idea and made sure that we knew, but then we don't really see him in that capacity again. He's so far removed that we're like, oh yeah, he really didn't do that. I mean, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't really him, right? When even that premise is predatory, which it wasn't in the first one, right? But then there's more of an intimacy that we get to see these characters have through these messages, because we actually get to instead of being told, about what they're writing each other, right? We're hearing them hearing them talk to each other, right? We're seeing these messages. We're getting, we're on this personal level with them and seeing, their interactions and hearing what they're actually saying to each other. And then it's double-pronged predatory, right? As a business level, and which also, fuck The Godfather. I hated that. I was like, this is the most man thing.
Oh my God.
But
her going to the mattress, punching. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was so bad. Again, another thing that I have not consumed. But I was just like, you're gonna go through this whole journey. You're gonna go through this whole emotional fucking journey. And we're right here with you. We know you are actually telling us how you're feeling at every moment. And you're telling the other person how you're feeling at every moment. So how can this be okay? And so when I was watching this, I wasn't really I was more charmed by her employees than I was anybody.
Yeah.
I was like, why the fuck is he in your house? Why are you even still talking to him? Why? Now you're friends? What the fuck is this? You wished it was him? I would never fucking forgive this person. Ever.
Yeah.
I don't care.
And realistically, she shouldn't have. She really should not have forgiven this man.
She shouldn't have. I was taken out immediately with all of this. I was like, no, I can't. And I know that this is iconic, and maybe because I'm coming into this as somebody that doesn't have nostalgia for it because I didn't watch it before. I don't have that. So it's easier for me to say oh well,
do this podcast.
But yeah, I could not with this movie, and it was cringe at several moments, and
it really is, yeah.
Yeah, so it was also really hard for me.
You mentioned something as well that I didn't really click until you said it about he didn't apologize for anything apart from just not being there. That non-apology also shielded by the idea that he has no agency in being tied to a family that owns bookstores. I feel like they try to reinstill this idea that he doesn't really have a choice in the matter that he's rich and whatever, because especially the way that they make him look by comparison to these two old Monopoly men, they're in white shirt, suspender, I'm old, and he's I'm just a family man. Like,
Yes.
like they make it so clear that he's like, well, I have no choice. This is just, I'm Anne's sons. I'm Anne's sons. What am I supposed to do? This is just what I have to do. And it's like, the movie spent its entirety trying to convince us that he has no choice, but the choice he does have is her, and he's choosing her when in fact, like, you can choose a different career, you can choose how you interact in this inherited wealth, in this inherited privilege, which also ties in to that scene when he pays for her fucking groceries, which makes
Drives
me
me
so
nuts.
which makes me so mad.
Yes.
Because the only reason it worked out is they're trying to reinstill the idea of male privilege, white cis male privilege in
Yes.
its full spotlight. And to me, the only way that could have worked, and this is the part that, like, I'm like, I don't care. Like, this scene did not work. The only way that it could have worked is if he did pay in cash. Like, if he abided by the rules of the line and he paid in cash and just, I did a nice thing, let's keep the line moving, I'm paying in cash, whatever, and didn't make it the cashier's problem and didn't make it anybody else's problem. He's like, hey, you're in a bind. Here's $175 to pay for your groceries in cash. I hope you have a great day. Move on. I would have been like, okay. But instead he's like, hey, little lady, I see you have a clicky-clack machine here. I have a clicky-clacky card here, and you're really pretty. What are we going to do about that? And you're like, what is this? Like, that's so stupid and bad.
I hate it.
It's not a good scene, but the one thing that makes it worthwhile is shout out to the fucking gay in this scene being like, she has no cash. She has no cash. Like, can you believe she has no cash? This is a cash-only line, ma'am. And then they're like, everyone's looking around. He's like, yeah, I know she has no cash. This girl has zero cash. Like, he's so on about the no cash thing. And it's so funny to me because he's just like some Brooklyn gay, like, excuse you. And I'm obsessed with it. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It makes no sense. It makes him more unlikable, but it's feeding us the lie that he is likable by showing us that, like, the checker is, like, charmed by him. And I'm like, no. She wouldn't be charmed by him. No.
We even have to have his, like, stepmom, like, make passes at him constantly to be like, oh no, he's like, people want to fuck him. Like,
yes.
I mean, like, so
Yes.
it's just another way where I feel like the writer is manipulating us into being like,
yes.
oh, bad guy, but not really bad guy. Like, let's remove this. Oh, let's remove this. Oh, this is how you should feel. And that's how writing works, right? Whereas like we are informing like the viewer or the reader on how we want them to feel about this certain character or this position, like, you know, whatever, right? However, the writing in this at certain points does feel predatory, like just like the story that is being told here. And I have a really hard time with that. Like,
it's another Nora being Nora, unfortunately, because she's also the credited screenwriter. Like, this is like emblematic of, I feel like, a lot of what she stands for just in terms of like storytelling. She's very good at a lot, and I think she's really like, but there are those levels that like of rigid patriarchy and rigid class structures that will never not be affiliated with Nora Ephron. Like, it will never not be ingrained in everything that she is, despite the like strong female and femme characters who are autonomous, who do have voices, who are complicated. Like, those will always be staples of her work as well. However, those characters will still bow to the patriarchy. Those characters will still bow to the class structure, a class structure that will always benefit them because they are more often than not, and by more often than not, I mean 95% white. Like, that is just going to be the case with her films, unfortunately. And you were so right about all of that, Jess. And it is so off-putting and it is so stressful because there are moments that I do want to be charmed by. I do want to eat up. Yes, I want it. And unfortunately, I can't have it because of these really glaring, outlandish scenes that just are like, why are you lying to us? Like, this is not... No, like, stop it. Like, that's a lot. That's bad. And you can't tell me otherwise.
The thing that I did really like about this, or like, you know, like is really interesting is like how we use the internet when it, was first kind of like we were figuring out what we could or wanted to use it for and how we use it now. Like, in terms of like now it's social media and everything's on fire and everything has like a chat feature. And I do kind of miss some of the anonymity, like, because before it didn't feel dangerous, I guess. Like, even though it's like, oh, well, this person could be a murderer or something, like, it felt less insidious. And and it felt a little bit more genuine, where like you didn't have, because like you didn't have to always put your best foot forward, or you didn't have to show that you were out doing the cool thing that everybody was doing, or that you weren't missing out on this other thing. Like those days, the Neopets days, this, like, I miss the gentleness of that. I felt like there was so much more community, and where now it's like every social media platform and every like messaging thing, not to like get on my soapbox or whatever, like, but now it's all either performative, like in terms of like you are performing for your friends and showing happiness and showing this, or like you are consuming performativeness of others, or they're literally just trying to sell you stuff. And so like now in that, it feels like impossible to even see the people that I want to see in these things, because I feel like I'm just being bombarded with just so much nothing all the time. It's really overwhelming, and has been very overwhelming for me. So this film did make me really nostalgic for what it used to be and what it could have been.
We're a time
where we could have been.
Social media was not a necessity for anything. It was a place you chose to go to if you wanted to. Like now, and not to say necessarily that like social media is necessary, but like as creative people, Jess, there is a level of like you can find connections. That's how you like show off your stuff. That's how you talk about your shows. That's how you talk about your projects. That's how you like.
And it feels so
network.
Disingenuous, and it sucks, and I hate it so much.
And it is so disingenuous, and that's the problem. Where like it isn't real. It is fake. But unfortunately, like there is like, oh, why don't you have a LinkedIn? Why don't you have a Facebook? Why don't you have an Instagram? Why don't you have Twitter? Like there is a social stigma attached to the idea of being disconnected from these things that now are integrated and feel so needed or like expected, in the same way that before, like the nostalgia for the idea that like, oh, you're on the internet? Oh, you do email? Like that's oh wow. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's now flipped, and it's frustrating, because it's like, what if I don't want to be on? Like, what if I don't want to be present or like
and also,
put myself online?
It can be a really dangerous place to be, especially if you have like any sort of like ideas that maybe straight white men won't like, about like, these kinds of stories and stuff. Maybe not You've Got Mail. I don't know if they have strong opinions on that. But yeah, it's a very different place, and I miss some of that gentleness and ease that I had before.
Our protagonist,
how is it, Tim? Tell us. How is being off the grid?
Our protagonists met in an over 30s chat room, and it's such a huge difference to go, is the guy in the over 30s chat room a serial killer? And to go, pretty sure my cousin is a serial killer. It's a totally different conversation. Like, I like that level of distance. I feel like a conspiracy theorist in that I think that our social media as it is now reinforces social and class boundaries, because you can't get away from heck, I live 600 miles from where I was born. And if I had social media still, I would only see their thoughts and opinions. And it does kind of like bring you in and hold you close, and kind of prevents you from meeting new people in this format, in my opinion. But yes. Yeah, I am totally off the grid. I do have like one last thing to delete. What I did in 2016, I just couldn't believe how all that went down. Every 6 months or so, I deleted as a form of social media. I kind of like, first I deleted off my phone. After a few months, I'm like, okay, how am I feeling about that? How often did I check that? And then another 3 months, I go, oh, I feel great. Let me pull all the photos. Anything interesting? And then it's gone. And it's 2022, and I don't know. I don't have anywhere to get memes, but other than that, it feels pretty good.
I'll send you all of the Star Trek memes. Don't worry. We're back.
We did it.
We made it back from the shop around the corner. We're here. We're feeling cute.
I bought $75 worth of books, and I was mad about it. Ooh.
Oh my gosh, because books are like so expensive, and my shop is like so much cheaper.
Yeah. Ugh.
I'm sorry, you were in the cash only line, so
Ma'am, it's cash only. She doesn't have any cash. Obsessed with this man. Obsessed. He was so fucking funny. He was so funny and like such a little snot. And it was so fun. It was so fun. Ugh.
To quote the protagonist in the first movie, this podcast has been a very interesting intersection between poetry and meanness.
Ooh, I like that.
I'll take it.
Ooh,
You had that saved. Thank you. That was gorgeous. Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Okay.
So we've made it here. The 1940s shop around the corner. Eric, who was this movie for?
It was for James Stewart. It was for James Stewart. Like classically, easily. I think this is an easy out for me, but I'm gonna just say James Stewart because, I mean, famous movie star. That's who I think it was for.
Excellent. What about you, Tim?
Outside of like film historians who have to watch it in order to get a credential, I think that this is a wonderful movie for catfishers and ghosts everywhere who have disappeared on a relationship that meant something to them, and they were wondering what would happen if I continued my manipulative ways and wormed myself in and fixed it. Like really though, not that all catfishers and ghosters are manipulative. I'm just saying this is their movie. Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, maybe also for the gays who love Judy Garland, watched it too many times and, wonder what else they can watch. That's how I ended up here.
I think it was for men. I think it was for men, kind of in the same way that you just said, Tim, but where it's about like, what if there was this woman and what if I did meet her and she was hot? Like, I mean, what if I could do that? What if I could be sensitive with somebody like right off the bat? Wow. Like, what if? So it's like, I think it's like a rom-com, but like specifically for men.
Wow.
Did you like it, Eric?
Honestly, yeah, I did. I thought it was very charming despite everything we discussed, especially for films of that time. Not to say that like old movies are boring, but old movies are boring, and this one isn't. Tim, did you like it?
I did. I really enjoy the like faster dialogue. I enjoyed like the interplay between characters. I feel like there's a lot more body comedy back then. And so like if you don't like let yourself get bogged down by the just general misogyny of it all, it can be just a really fun watch.
Yeah. Jess, how about you? It's hard, right? It's difficult.
I think it absolutely had a lot of charm for the reasons that we talked about with like the witty dialogue, for Mars to check. I thought that Novak was incredibly cute, like, and I loved like that she felt empowered, but for me, all of that was just wiped away by the fact that she actually had no power and no autonomy. And like, I don't think at a certain point we like really saw her be stoked for herself. Like we see her in bed because this dude ghosted her, right? And she's only excited when she gets this letter. Like to me, it almost felt like that's what she was living for. Like, so I thought it was fine. Like, even after talking about it, I think it was fine. I think it's a really novel idea to use snail mail and have a pen pal that you kind of fall in love with. I think that is a charming idea, but I think the execution of it just is fine. Big fine.
Big fine. Big if true, big fine.
What about the remake? Was it new, interesting, or the same, progressive, regressive? How are you feeling about You've Got Mail?
I think it's new, and I think it's interesting. New, just it's a new concept. It's the age of technology. I really like that as like a way for anonymous conversations, anonymous relationships. In that same dichotomous, like they're in separate relationships and they're also in competing like big box chain bookstore, little shop around the corner, literally great. The only thing that I thought was regressive is them not only doubling but tripling down on the manipulative portion of this film. They really just said, oh no, we're fully doing it harder than the first. And you're like, oh damn, they really are. So I think like, oh fuck, like he's really going for it. Damn. So it's real regressive in that way. Like it is so gross and messy for that reason. I mean, outside of that, I thought it was like a really good story. I thought it was really interesting and new, but that just big chunk of character and plot. Woo!
Yeah.
Real messy. Tim, what do you think?
The call is coming from within the house. Like Tom Hanks, if it was anyone other than Tom Hanks, we would be calling the police for her, right?
But it's Tom Hanks, since we're like, ooh, we love him.
Tom, right? I'm gonna say that it's regressive, but that's my opinion. And I'm saying it because it kind of, for me, exemplifies the way we've masked true emotions by finding a way to hide it beneath like fake goodness. Like at least the problematic characters were obviously problematic. And it was only through like a little bit of over analysis that we were able to be like, oh, this is why I feel good about Tom Hanks right now. Like really, he's a CEO, he's doing horrible things. The impact on the world is bad. So we know that. We didn't even know Amazon was coming in to put him out of business yet.
Right.
But yeah, I'm going to say it's regressive because of that. And then, yeah, and even the only LGBT portrayal was the nanny and the bisexual partner who's portrayed as a nymphomaniac. And yeah, it's a little bit better than the kept man in the first movie, but I'm just going to say it's not the portrayals that I wanted in anyone.
Yeah, it's not good.
Totally. Yeah, I think that it was new. I don't think it was really interesting because I don't think seeing a woman get fucked this hard and not the pleasant way is interesting. I think it's a tragedy and I think it's awful and pisses me off a great deal. But I agree with you. I think it's regressive for all of those things. I think it's regressive because they are double, tripling, quadrupling down on like so many fucking levels to where like the story itself feels like a manipulation because it's like presenting this idea and then the erasure of it so that way you don't feel as bad or conflicted about this character or what it's doing. And this story, you didn't have to make this the story if you didn't want us to think about that. Like, this was a fucking choice. And so these choices that were made, for me, I'm like, this is sloppy. And sure, it's like, you could argue that it's good because, like, you don't think about him as a CEO and you're like, oh my gosh, look at, they have so much chemistry, which they did, and which was really cute, like, when they were friends at the end. But everything that came before that and what he was still doing without her knowledge or consent behind the screen of his, like, giant ass fucking laptop, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I have a really big problem with, and I couldn't get past that. I couldn't get past her not having the purse. Her fucking bed moved in the middle of the movie. Like, because I remember looking at the bed when she's sitting on there with like her boyfriend, and I was like, wow, that should be close. Because you see the whole thing fucking shake, and it's like, wow, that's weird. And then when Tom Hanks comes in, her bed is like catty cornered on a corner thing, and I was like, wait, what? Like, and like, so I don't know. There was a lot of things that just really fucking took me out of this movie. And I don't think there was ever a point when I was really in it other than when it was her talking to her employees and hanging out with them.
Yeah.
But that's it. That was the movie. Who do you think this was for, Eric?
America Online. 100%. It's like AOL City, baby. Like AIM. We got AIM. We got You've Got Mail is literally the title. Like, we'll talk about branding. Hello. Hi. Like, it is a movie for the brands. I mean,
do you
apart
remember
from
when they used to charge you by the hour? Like,
yeah.
and like,
oh my God.
I remember
Wild.
all of the fucking like free hour, like 1,000 hours, like CD-ROMs from AOL. Yeah.
Oh, we had
by
stacks.
the hour.
They would send that shit in the mail. Stacks.
Yes.
So AOL.com, shout the fuck out. You got a titular ad. baby. Like, go off, get your money. AOL.com.
I love that they still have like 4 million subscribers, like active.
Which is so wild to me
Oh
because
my
it's
God.
like AOL.com is the new global.net .comcast. Like, it's insane.
Okay, I do want to say this is a call out post for our editor, Danny Barkley, who still has an AOL email.
Does he?
He does.
Danny.
So, and I know that that's the spam email, but that he also still checks it. So, this is a call out post. We
Well,
love you, but maybe
then
think
this-
about your choices.
Well, in full transparency, then I also still have an AOL.com AOL.com account, but only
This is a call out
because
post for you too.
7
What is
years
happening?
ago I tried to relog in to delete it, and because it's not attached to any other account that I have, there's no way to reset the password, and I can't get back in to officially delete it. So it still
Okay.
exists, and it's still technically
Okay.
active, but I got locked out.
But Danny still logs in daily.
Yeah, there's no excuse for him.
There's
He has no excuse.
Maybe Danny's just waiting for that email from Shopgirl 47 to come in.
It's
True.
true.
You know what? Maybe. Are you waiting
He's
for
waiting
your
for that
shop girl?
door sound.
Okay, but I did get a little bit nostalgic for all the sounds. That was
Same.
so stupid.
So super duper same. Super same.
Oh wow. Okay.
So
Um.
I'm just gonna answer. You say it's for America Online. I say it's for America.
Ooh,
Okay.
Super
okay.
patriotic.
Wow.
Because we all feel nostalgic for it. I look at that movie and it's like, I would watch it again tomorrow. Is it the best movie? No. Is it better than the last one? No. But who doesn't love like depictions of New York in the winter? I've never been to New York, but I get nostalgic when I see Meg Ryan drag that Christmas tree down the side. I'm not even Christian.
Yeah. Like, will I
That's
rewatch this
content that I
again?
need.
And will I cry when she says, "I wish it was you so bad"? Like, I will cry. Like, it will get me. I will watch it again, and it will hit me again.
I love this
It's for the
both
world.
of you. It's for the world, not just America. The world.
We
The
are
world.
the world.
I do think that this is for Daniel Barkley, our editor, because he still has his AOL email address account. We love you. I'll say another one just in case you don't want to run that. Let's see. Who is this for? I'm gonna say, obviously, Miss Rhode Island and Bertie and
Oh,
George.
my God.
This is for them. This movie really should have centered them. This movie should have been about them. Just like the first one. Just put it in this shop and I would have been sold. I would have been so good. That's what
Yeah.
this movie should have been.
Gene Stapleton.
Did you like it, Eric?
I do. I mean, it's a mess and it's kind of fucked up, and like, yeah. I'm still a fan. Still got it. Oh, I'm still into it. Still love it. I do. I think it's a great film. Tim.
I think if you're wanting to watch one in this series, watch The Good Old Summertime with Judy Garland. If you're wanting to watch a Nora Ephron movie, go watch When Harry Met Sally or Sleepless in Seattle. If you've exhausted that content, this is the movie for you.
Fourth choice.
Love it.
Yeah.
I did not like this movie. I will never watch this movie again.
Mhm.
I don't think this is a romantic story at all, and I
Yeah.
hate it.
Wow.
But I love and respect all of you for all of your
Yeah.
opinions.
I mean, I know where
Um,
you're coming from completely, and to that effect, I also agree. But
I think
I'm
I also
still-
have like rom-coms for me are also like I mean I do love lots of rom-coms that are problematic, but like maybe not having that nostalgia for this one is different. But like rom-coms are always hard for me because again it's like usually, especially like before now, written by a man or like you are being told how you should want to be loved and romanced, and that you should overlook all of these glaring problems. Like I hate because so many women do reference these things when they're like, oh, but this was so romantic. Oh, he did this. It's so romantic. Like there's like the love bombing and there's like, so it's a little bit of a tough genre for me. I'm a tough critic on it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think that's it. We did it.
Yeah.
Look at us.
We did it.
What a gorgeous and lovely and fantastic moment. Tim, thank you so much for being here and spending the last 3 hours with us, going through it all in such gorgeous and wonderful detail. Do you have anything you want to plug in any capacity that is, whether it's a book, some personal stuff, whatever you want? You can literally say anything right now.
Gosh, I don't have any social media, so I can't plug that. I do have a P.O. box. If you want to anonymously write me a letter, we can start. I do have a P.O. box. I'm not going to give it out.
I was gonna be like, wow, how shop around the corner of you.
Yeah, I was ready for it. I was going to do it. I'm just a small town girl in San Francisco out there wanting to meet my golden retriever owning. I'm rambling now, but
your golden retriever twink.
Barkley thing. Yeah, I found it at Badlands.
Oh my God.
So to plug anything, maybe just go read a book.
I love that. We
That's
love a knowledgeable king. We love an educational king.
Tolstoy, Crime and Punishment.
The classics.
Theme it.
Miss Karenina, if you're nasty.
Well, thank you so much for being here. This has been like such a wonderful conversation, and I had the greatest time. I never thought that I would have so much to talk about regarding You've Got Mail.
I know.
But this has been a delight.
What a joy.
And
thank
you, everybody, for listening.
Please don't forget to rate and review us wherever you get your podcasts and follow us on social media wherever we're present.
Our artwork and music is by Eric Lefebvre. Editing is by Danny Barkley. And thank you again for listening. And thank you, Eric and Tim.
Thank you, Tim and Jess.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And remember, stay cute.
And stay critical.
Bye, 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 bye.
Bye. Goodbye, goodbye. This podcast has been brought to you by the NOTstalgia Network.
Visit thenotStalgiaNetwork.com for more.
You enter the dungeon and see the evil wizard pointing his wand directly at you. He says, "Show me a funny and delightful actual play Dungeons & Dragons podcast, or I'll consume your souls!" What do?
I take out my phone and find Quest Friends Forever on Spotify.
I show him how to find Quest Friends Forever on Apple Podcasts.
I share the Quest Friends Forever Instagram and YouTube pages with him.
And you all get critical hits!
Yay!
Quest Friends Forever is an actual play podcast starring 4 friends with varying levels of Dungeons & Dragons experience. Join us for new episodes every other Wednesday as we embark on fantasy adventures, play fast and loose with the rules, and laugh at each other's shenanigans. No prior D&D knowledge is required to listen, so everyone can feel free to join the fun. Quest Friends 4, that's the number 4, like how there's 4 of us, ever. Find us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. That's Quest Friends Forever.